Welcome to It Can Get Better Than This. I'm Heather Hodge,
And I'm Dr. Cindy Byler.
and today our episode is called Boundaries and Marriage.
Woohoo!
We've been on this boundary season for a little while now, and we're having a lot of fun in it.
Yes, and it's very helpful. One of the things that I see most in marriage, well, even in individual counseling, the most work on is that people need to find boundaries in their relationships
Yeah,
because they often operate without boundaries and then they feel very taken advantage of, or they're the one taking advantage of
the
other
other
people
person.
and
Yeah,
they don't know why people are pulling back or mad at them all the time. And so this is a very important component of helping with relationships, especially in marriage communication skills.
I think it's hard because when you get married, you feel like you're supposed to kind of mesh into each other. But I mean, they have a term for that called enmeshment. But it's hard because that's the person you're closest to, and you're sharing your life with them. So the idea of implementing boundaries in this can be kind of to
It's
some
kind of
people.
tricky. And you're also, like everybody says, you're one now as a
Yeah,
couple, but you're also still two individuals coming from two different backgrounds, two different personalities, two different skill sets, two different everythings. And it's very difficult to, this is the most difficult, well, I can't say it's the most difficult, but it is a difficult relationship because all of a sudden you're living together and you are depending on each other to make life work.
right, right.
And you didn't grow up together necessarily. Most people don't grow up with their,
I mean, I did, but not everybody does.
right, but it still wasn't even day to day,
Right,
and you weren't in
right.
the same family, so you have two different family experiences coming into it, and two different everything. So
And that doesn't go away once you get married either. You're
no,
still two different people coming into it.
right. So it's meshing that all together and finding how you're going to do things, and many times that is different than how your families did it, but you're in the habit and you're in the lifestyle of how your family did it, both of you as individuals. So yeah, it takes a lot of building and talking and good communication skills and learning boundaries. So let's first review what boundaries are.
Okay.
So boundaries are like property lines. I when I teach this, I draw a picture of a house and put a little fence around it, which I'm a terrible drawer, so it's all stick figures and stuff. And I say, this is your house. You are that house, and your boundaries are the property lines
Inside the
around your
property
house,
lines.
right?
Yeah.
So you know that when you own a property that you're responsible for mowing your yard,
Hmm.
but where your property line ends, that's where your neighbor's responsibility starts. It's the same thing with boundaries.
Right, right.
And so we are responsible for our own emotions, our own behavior, our own financial spending, our own decisions. We're responsible for our own values, our own thoughts, and our own limits.
Okay.
Conversely, we are not in control of other people's emotions, behavior, financial spending, decisions, values, thoughts, and limits.
Right.
We can have influence, but ultimately we're not in control. If we feel like we're in control, it's a false sense of control.
Yeah.
They're deciding to behave the way or act or say things the way that they agree with you.
So in a situation where I've noticed it's common where somebody will say, or not common, it's I've had experience with people saying, I'm sorry you're mad. I'm sorry you're upset, instead of saying, because like while we don't have control over the other person's emotions, we do have control over our words
And our tone.
and their tone. And one of the things, like one of the pet peeves of mine, is when someone says, I'm sorry you're sad, I'm sorry you're upset, I'm sorry your feelings are hurt, instead of saying, I'm sorry that when I said what I said, I didn't say it
Yes.
kindly. I said it in the meanest way possible that I could think of it, or I said it sarcastically or whatever. So like instead of saying, it's not saying I'm sorry you're mad. It's saying I'm sorry that I said that was stupid, when what I could have said is I don't understand why you chose to do it that way.
Yeah, that's good. So they're not taking responsibility for their own words
Right.
or their own tone.
And in the same way, if your partner is trying to talk to you about something that needs to be talked about, it's your responsibility when your defenses to go up to sort through those emotions and why you
Yes.
feel that way. Like both, if it's going to be successful, both people have to take responsibility for their own thing, whether it's their
Right.
emotions and reactions or their words.
Right. And that's the best possible scenario is when both of you are working on your own self-control in all these areas. And it's
Right.
not just up to one. Many times it starts with one person in the couple to say, I'm not doing it this way anymore. We need to get this figured out. We need to see somebody, our pastor, our a rabbi, or therapist, a counselor, somebody to talk through a parent how to do this. And whether the other person starts at the same time, sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't, but that it takes one person to say, I'm done with this often.
Yeah.
But it's the best case scenario when both of you are working on your boundaries
Right.
and taking
Right.
control and responsibility for your house and your yard,
Yeah.
so to speak. Right. One of the issues that I find most often in marriage counseling with clients is taking responsibility for one's own actions and whose responsibility is the emotion, the behavior, and the decisions.
Yeah.
So, and that can get really blurry, like with the scenario that you were talking about, like, oh, I'm sorry that made you mad. Instead of, oh, I should have really said that a lot better. That
Right.
was really mean or condescending or dismissive or minimizing.
Yeah. Or I'm sorry that I didn't take the time that I needed to calm down before we continue talking about this, or that I
Right,
didn't give you the time to calm down and think through this.
right. Now, there are times where you do say something to somebody and it does make them mad or sad because of the consequences of what's happened.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that can be done about that. If you're saying it kindly and you're being the best version of yourself,
Right.
which is important, then you don't have to go back and say you're sorry. I hate saying I'm sorry.
I think when first implementing boundaries, it's normal for couples to be, or for at least one person in the couple to be defensive too.
Hmm.
Typically the one that it wasn't their idea to start implementing
Yes.
boundaries.
Right.
Um I think it's important that in those first times of especially putting those boundaries in place, there's a conversation about having each other's best interest at heart as well.
Yeah, that's good because that's how trust is built. Trust is built when you know that the other person is thinking about you and the relationship and not just about themselves and what they need and want.
Right.
When I know that my spouse has my best interest at heart.
And that might not always be resolved in a conversation. I mean, trust takes years of rapport building up with
Hmm.
each other. And hopefully in a marriage you have that. It's not always realistic for people,
Right.
and a reality for people, but
Right.
it doesn't say, I have your best interests at heart. It's like, really? Because you show that you don't all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's about learning what that means to your spouse.
Yeah.
What does it mean for me to have your best interest at heart?
But that definitely helps lower the defenses as you're implementing those boundaries as
Hmm.
well.
Yes. Yeah. And having safe conversations about them and giving each other grace as you work through boundaries and implementing boundaries and taking responsibility. It's going to take time because both have habits of how you're having conversations with each other and probably with other people because we do things about the same way with other people that we do with our spouses,
Yeah.
and we have the habits to change and that takes time.
Oh, that goes right back to season 1 and the stretchy brain episode and
Yes,
neuroplasticity.
neuropathways. Right, so go back to season 1 and watch that episode
Mhm.
because that's all we're going to say about it right now.
Yep.
So trust is vital to a relationship. In my experience, it's even more important than feelings, not love itself, but feelings of love. Because I have found in my experience that if you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship.
Right. And if love is not feelings and love is I don't know. I always believed that love was a choice. And the
Hmm.
choices that it's built upon the choices that we make for each other. And if your choices aren't based in a trusting place, it's a lot harder to make them for each other.
Right, right. Okay, I need just a minute. So in trust is also feeling and not just feeling, but being completely welcome in the relationship.
Mhm.
All of me. I had somebody say that to my other daughter, Gracie, yesterday, where um, she said something, the other person said something to Gracie, and it kind of like drew, drew her up short, and she reacted, and she normally wouldn't react to this person, but she kind of reacted to her, and Gracie apologized, and she's like, "That's okay. I love all of you." And like that hit home with me because there's very few people that will do that for you where I
Yeah.
love you even when you're like reacting to me in a way I wasn't expecting.
That reminds me of Frozen 2 as well. The second Frozen movie when the whole movie Kristoff is trying to, sorry, spoilers, trying to propose to Anna, and he's got a whole ballad about, and halfway through the movie, about like I can't seem to get close to you, or are we falling apart, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then at the end of the movie, she needs him, and he's right there ready for her, and she's like, I'm sorry, and he says, my love is not fragile. And I always love
Oh,
that.
oh, I love that too. So, so am I welcome in this relationship? So the other side of that would be, am I welcoming that person in this relationship?
Yeah.
Can I welcome their weaknesses and their strengths?
Right.
Can I welcome their victories? Sometimes our victories challenge the other person because of jealousy. Like, that's great that you did that. I don't have time to do that, or I couldn't do that. Like, there's that competitive edge sometimes with a couple or in other relationships. So, can I cheer with them in victory? And can I be there when they have a failure or a defeat?
Yeah. And
Can I be there for their dreams and goals? Do I
yeah.
welcome those as well, even if they're going to make my life a little bit uncomfortable sometimes? Can I welcome them and dream with them and set goals with them as we figure life out together?
Right. And again, this only works if you're both asking if you are doing that for that person, not just going,
Yes.
"Oh, they don't do that for me. They don't do that for me either." You know, you both have to. If both of them
Yes.
aren't doing it, it's not ultimately on one spouse to do
Right.
that. It's on both of you to be doing that.
Yes. And that reminds me, just a word of caution. Sometimes a spouse will deal with things and push them down and just let that person run their life. I have yet to see a case either in my personal life or in my professional life of seeing people as a pastor and as a therapist where that doesn't cause a problem a little later in marriage.
Yeah.
At some point there's a breaking point when that person says, I have given up all this. I have done everything that you want to do and you have never considered me, and it causes a really hard time in the marriage and sometimes it ends the marriage. So just a word of caution, if you're finding that all of your dreams and goals and everything about you is what the relationship centers around, be careful that that does not last forever. Make sure that you are the person that steps up and says, okay, this needs to be about both of us. I know we're raising kids right now and you're home with the kids, but I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of who you are apart from being a mother
Right.
or as a father, because some fathers stay home. We don't want to lose sight of what your dreams are besides just being a parent
Right.
or being a wife. And what goals do you have with your life? I find that a lot, especially in young adults, marriages with young children. But
Yeah.
it does continue and continue, and at some point there's a breaking point, and better to avoid that breaking point than to keep living the way that you're living and making sure that you have a conversation that follows with actions towards both of you being counted in the relationship,
Right. Right.
because you can never get those years back.
Yeah.
That can never be, you can start at that point and move forward, but you can never get all that time lost in your relationship or with that person's life the way that they would like to live it.
Mm. That's good.
So that brings me to um, a point I wanted to make about carelessness. So
Ooh.
I saw this I'm watching a lot of podcasts about boundaries while we've been writing these. And also it's a good refresher because I have a marriage group here and at my work, and I always want to start with boundaries because they're so important, so crucial to a good relationship. And one of them talked about carelessness. A couple of them talked about carelessness. And I had really never put that word to boundaries before. But when we have relationships that we see constantly that we're interdependent with, we share life with daily, um, we become negligent and careless with them sometimes, not making each other a priority. Like the kids are always first, or my work is always first, or my hobby is always first, or all of it is always first, and you're always like later on the list. Or being careless with their feelings and their thoughts, being dismissive or minimizing, or just ignoring and acting like there are no feelings and thoughts there. Comparing them to other people,
Yeah.
especially if it's the same sex as your spouse, and like this person doesn't do this, or this person does this, or they're so pretty. Those kinds of careless thoughts or words.
We had that a little bit when we first got married. Aaron would now, to be fair, his sister is a chef. She's a great
Yes, she
in the
is.
kitchen. And when I first when I first started cooking for both of us, oh, did you get my sister's recipe? And he didn't mean it
Oh,
in
it's
any
like
kind of way. He just really valued like that's like the top tier is his sister's
right.
cooking or cleaning. She's great with cleaning and stuff too. Did you figure that out with my sister? And I'm like,
Oh,
do you want to marry your sister? And he's like,
right.
what?
Guys do that with their moms too sometimes.
Yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
wow.
Like now it's funny. At the time I was like, what the heck?
Right. What is
My
your
weight's not
problem?
good enough. And he's like, I never considered other ways. I just kind of I like what my
Right.
sister does.
That's hilarious.
She makes this so good. I'm like, okay.
That's hilarious. One time, well, we were 4 or 5 years in the marriage because you were born or I was pregnant with you at the time, and we had an older woman about our parents' age come to visit, and we were in Texas, and she was helping get dinner ready, and he said to her, Cindy just hasn't found a rhythm in the kitchen yet. Like, oh boy, that was careless. I walked out of the kitchen before I slayed him verbally in front of our
Oh
friend.
man.
It's
Yeah.
like, wow, I still have to this day, and you are 30 years old. I have not forgotten
Oh no.
those words. She just hasn't found a rhythm in the kitchen yet. I was making all of our meals by that point.
Oh man.
So, yes, be careful because some of these things stick with you for the rest of your life and you have a hard time letting them go and being okay.
Yeah. And like Aaron and I were friends for years before this. So some of the ways that we used to laugh and joke with each other were fine until we started dating.
Yeah.
And then I actually started caring about what he said.
Right. The relationship changed.
And
Yeah.
same, I would carelessly say stuff too, and it would hurt his feelings. And he's like, I don't know why I'm reacting like this. I'm like, I think you care about what I say now. And he's like, well, you don't have to say things the way you do all the time. I'm like, oh, yep, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Another area to not be careless about is your screen time.
Yeah.
Sitting it with your spouse or your children or anybody really, being on your phone or your tablet or your computer, and you're kind of half listening because you can't do two things at one time. That's very careless. Like, make sure that you're paying attention and giving your full self into the relationship.
Yeah.
Are you putting your full self into your marriage? And if you're not, you need to start measuring where you can do better and put your full self into the marriage so you can have a long, happy marriage.
In psychology, they call that a bid for attention when
Mm-hmm.
they're like attempting to get your attention. And
Yes.
I'm sorry, but you can't have like they can't have your full attention if you're also looking at something else.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's not going to register to them that you're really paying all of your attention to them in that moment.
Right.
It's especially crucial for children because that's also like that's a whole matter of security for them too,
Mm-hmm.
and making them feel secure and connected, and
Yeah.
that's already hard. But it's definitely not fun in a marriage either.
No, it's very disrespectful.
Yeah.
So some examples of boundaries, and I think we might have covered this in the first episode, but one example is words.
Mm-hmm.
I keep hearing in these other podcasts, no is a complete sentence. So yes or no, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to participate. It's okay to say no. You just have to decide. Some people go to the other extreme where they go from saying yes all the time to saying no all the time, and you got to find that pendulum.
The balance.
The balance, yeah. Let that swing to a balance so that sometimes we do have to sacrifice for other people, but we don't have to do it all the time and to the point of our own detriment.
Mm-hmm.
Another example of boundaries is truth. And that is like being honest about how we feel or we think about something rather than just letting it go.
Yeah, which also means addressing with yourself, how are you feeling? Which that's
Mhm.
kind of hard to do. Sometimes you really do have to make an effort to check in and
Yes.
am I feeling edgy right now? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Is this a good time to talk about this right now? That kind of thing.
Right. Another one is consequences. And this can be the hardest in a marriage because it feels like you're dealing with a child
Yeah.
when you have consequences, but there are natural consequences to actions.
Right. Or like you're being treated like a child.
Right. Right. And so boundaries are not requests. They are, this is how I'm going to do this. And I would like you, if you do this, then this is how I'm going to have to react to this.
Right. Like I need you to honor this this boundary that I've withheld.
Set.
Yeah.
Right. Emotional distance and physical distance sometimes can be examples of boundaries. If somebody's hurt your feelings, at some point, if they cannot stop, then you're going to have to step back from the relationship emotionally or physically so that they can understand that I'm not putting up with this. I'm not going to be treated this way or talked to this way. Another one is time, like you said before, about setting a time to talk about something. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's not a good time to have a deep conversation or a meaningful conversation. Sometimes you need to put it off until the kids are in bed, or it's not too early in the morning or too late at night, or somebody's just getting home from work and have to like make that transition into work to home.
Yeah.
So there's other examples as well, but those are some good examples of boundaries.
Mhm. I think another one is I just thought of it, the boundaries in scheduling too. This gets
Mhm.
more complex when you start adding more kids or dependents in your life.
Right.
'Cause, sometimes it's taking care of adult parents or something like that too.
Right.
But having boundaries of like, okay, we are not doing every fun thing, like every activity we've been invited to
Mhm.
this week. We need to have some time that's downtime, and deciding that together is important. Or setting boundaries in like who's watching the kid
Mhm.
when, and um that way both of you are getting the amount of time that you need to be an individual outside
Mhm.
of your household for a minute, whether it's like going to coffee with friends or going to see a movie or something like that, taking some time to breathe.
Right.
um and in turn also honoring that you're like putting, we do a joint calendar and that's made it a lot easier for us, and if it's not on the calendar, it's fair game that we don't do that event. A lot of times we just, we make concessions for each other, and I'm so sorry, I'll get better with that next time, and
Mhm.
it's very forgiving. But um we're we
That's a
hold
good
each other
idea.
to um making each other put stuff on the calendar so that neither one of us forget, and we don't have any arguments around that point.
Right. That's a good idea. A shared calendar because you can do that on different
most
apps.
most phones you can do that with now.
Mhm. Good. Okay, so back to consequences a little bit. Um, it is hard to set consequences for a spouse because they are your significant other, they're your peer. Um, but and we often want to make it easier for our spouses. But consequences to actions give your spouse and whoever you set them with an opportunity for growth.
A lot of times, I think the consequences wind up being natural consequences.
Hmm.
You don't have to make those up too. It's mostly just holding the boundary. So,
Right.
like if they overspent, saying, "Look, I'm not giving you um, I'm not giving you any more money from here for you to go out to eat and everything. You've already spent what you've got."
Right. Or we're not going to be able to go out to eat for the rest of this week or the rest of the month
Right.
because you've just overspent. Those are natural consequences.
Right.
Um, so when you just enable somebody and like, okay, well, we'll just have to figure it out, then
Right.
they never learn. They continue to repeat the pattern. If they're repeating the pattern, then they never grow. And we all need to grow in areas of our lives, in our character, in our spending habits, in how we think, how we control our emotions. And so it's really an opportunity for growth for that person as you work on boundaries
So
together.
you're kind of robbing them from that if you overstep it
Right.
then. Wow. Yeah, I think and really that goes with anything. Like um you didn't do what I asked you to do in making time for our date this week. So um we're like I've asked you to do this. We're not rescheduling. Especially if it's a common problem. I'm not saying just,
Right.
cut them off there, but like if it's a common problem, we're not rescheduling. What you lost, the consequences, you have lost valuable time with your spouse to reconnect with each other, to get on the same page, to date again, to, have an opportunity to bring joy to the relationship or whatever. Or, say you are together, you had a boundary of we're not talking about this subject, you know.
Yes.
Um, we're not talking about the kids, we're not talking about your mom, whatever the problem is.
Right.
Um, the natural consequence is, if they keep crossing that line, is you've lost the quality of the date that you could have had, that time that you
Mm-hmm.
could have had with that person, and your relationship will suffer for it. And they might not feel the consequences immediately, but bringing it up to them, like, we could have had a nice time, but you chose to keep crossing this boundary. And um instead of setting a separate time to talk about this, now we've lost what we had before,
Right.
what we could have had.
We could have had fun,
Now we don't.
and now we're not, and that
Right.
the time is lost, and you can't get that back. But it's important to verbalize it and point it out. You don't have to do it in a mean way,
Right.
and definitely don't tear the other person down, their character down, but let them know so that it doesn't just
Right.
go by the way.
Yeah, and I think if you've been walked over for a long time, it's going to be tempting to want to
Oh,
tear them
yes.
down. But
Yes.
honestly, the consequence enough, it will be. I think it'll be consequence enough to point out. Now we've lost this
Yeah.
because you did not stop. Now we have lost this, or because you were mean to me and cutting me down with your words. Now I don't feel like I can talk to you,
Yes.
or
Right.
whatever the case is.
Right. So it's important to look to see how you're contributing to issues that you're facing in the marriage. Are you enabling by not setting good boundaries? Or are you not expressing what you feel and think so that person has no opportunity to grow and change? Are you in a with a parent-child relationship? Are you going to clean up that child's room instead of teaching them and letting them clean up their own room so that they don't have the opportunity to grow, but then the room is still constantly a mess because they're not taking responsibility?
Right.
So, are you rescuing that person?
Right. And
Like it,
if you're rescuing them, is it actually saving them? Yeah.
right? And are they changing that behavior, or do you just keep going through the same loop over and over again, like many couples do?
Mm.
So it's important to see, what am I doing in this to make this issue continue? And it might not be that you're doing something wrong in your behavior. Well, it is wrong in your behavior. It might not be doing something wrong, except not putting your boundaries in place.
Right. Right.
And it's very important to do that. Boundaries are a vital role in communication as well, because when you have good boundaries, or at least you're working on them together, you'll find a safe place more easily that you can talk out issues together, because you'll find that you have more respect for each other. You're not careless in your relationship, and you can find safety a lot easier, build trust in that relationship better. When each person feels valued and heard, challenges can get resolved a lot easier.
Yes. Yeah. That was one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised in my relationship with Aaron versus like for both of us past relationships that we had had before each other. Both of us were like, wow, fights used to take hours to get fully
Huh.
resolved.
Yeah.
That was awful. And he and I would, because the difference really was being able to trust each other and trust that we had each other's best interest at heart and that we cared about each other first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it astounded me and him that we could have a conversation and in about 15 minutes everything was back to normal again.
Yeah, you
It
could
just
work
took
it
a little
out.
conversation and maybe clearing up a misunderstanding or two. Every once in a while, I'd be like pointing out, you're being really defensive here. What's the matter? Kind of thing.
Right. Because you're not fighting for yourself anymore.
Right.
You're both working together for what's best for both of you, rather than having to fight for your own freedom or your own ability to dream or to have a goal or to go someplace or to, to
Be
have
a person.
be a person.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Like we've said throughout this episode, knowing that you have your spouse's best interest at heart and they have yours, it really helps to increase trust, freedom in the relationship, and you'll find that your love increases as well. And that will give you a fulfilling marriage for many years to come. The sooner that you start working on boundaries and trust within your relationship, the sooner the relationship will become that marriage that you always dreamed of
Yeah.
having when you first got married. So, this is Boundaries in Marriage. If you have questions or things that you would like us to touch on in other episodes, please go on social media or on YouTube and comment so that we can address those in later episodes. We'd love to have feedback for what we can bring you in coming seasons.
Yes. You can also direct message us on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Yes. Okay. Well, remember, it can get better than this. Have a great week.